You want to invest in property, but the idea of taking on more debt makes you nervous. Understandable, right? You finally bought your home. You just want to pay that mortgage off faster. And so the idea of getting more debt and borrowing against that home is, feels really risky. But here's what most Kiwi homeowners don't realize, that many property investors in New Zealand use the equity in their family home to get started. The problem isn't the equity, it's using the equity without a system where you know how to be able to pay down the mortgages as fast as possible so you are not over leveraging yourself, right? Because if you do it the wrong way, you can stack up a lot of debt and risk. But if you do it the right way, you can grow wealth while still paying down your mortgage faster. And later, I'll show you the big mistake many property investors make that quietly increases the risk and what to do instead. So let's understand what this strategy is called. It's actually leveraging your equity, where you use the equity in your family home as a deposit for an investment property. And it works really well when you are looking to get a rental property. It's when the bank allows you to borrow against the value already built into your home, and that equity can be used as that deposit. But there are some rules involved, and you need to understand how it works to make sure that you understand when you're ready to be able to use your equity for a rental property. So what is equity actually? It's simply the difference between your property value and your mortgage. Okay, let's look at what equity actually is. So let's say your home value is $900,000. Okay, that's the value. But you have a mortgage of $500,000. That's your mortgage. So you have the difference between the value and your mortgage is the equity. Right. Now, unfortunately, the bank will not let you use all of your equity because that's too much risk that they're taking on, that if something happens, there's no value in the home that they can leverage. So they require that you leave in 20% of the home's equity. Okay. So that means that the usable equity, what you actually can use, is the amount of equity that you have minus the 20%. So it's 80% of your equity is the usable equity. That is the figure that you need to know and check, is that enough as a deposit on an investment property, a rental property, land, whatever you're wanting to do. You need that amount to be enough so you can use that equity. So how will banks use this equity? When you buy an investment property, the bank usually uses 100% of the purchase price, right? That deposit portion comes from your equity. Instead of saving that deposit in cash, you're using the value already built into your home. Okay, so now let's look at how equity is being able to be used to purchase a rental property. Let's say this is your family home, and this is your investment property that you want to purchase. So what will happen is the bank will look at how much usable equity do you have in your home, okay? And they will help you to use that as a deposit, okay? To get the loan for the deposit against the equity, the usable equity that's in your home, all right? So now when it comes to the rest of the loan, they will also give you a loan for the rest of the property. So that means you end up getting 100% loan of the investment property value. But you have to have enough usable equity in your family home to cover the deposit. So basically they loan out the deposit to you against your home, your usable equity, and then give you the rest of the loan just like they did for your family home. So that means you end up getting 100% loan for the investment property. There's two main differences between the mortgage on your rental property and the mortgage on your family home. Number one, your tenant helps you to pay down that mortgage faster, right? The rent can cover the mortgage, the insurance rates. Maybe not always, right? If the tenant is paying their rent, then it can maybe in the beginning, it's only covering some of those, and you might have to put some money to pay onto the mortgage to cover the mortgage or rates or insurance. But over time, as you're paying down that mortgage faster, then the tenant can cover all the costs of that rental property. The second is if you get in trouble with finances or you really need to make some changes, you can sell off a rental property. You wouldn't want to do this for your family home because you'd have to move, you have to live in a tent. What would you do for your housing, your accommodation? But if you get in trouble, you can sell off your rental property, and that does not make any changes to your family, right? So it actually holds less risk by using the equity in your family home to buy an investment property. And if you are paying down, you're using strategies like within the Freedom Blueprint where we teach at Futurebound, then you are actually being able to use your superpower of paying down mortgages faster to help to lower the risk as well. So when does it make sense to use your equity to invest in property? I always say if you have enough usable equity for your deposit and the bank will give you a loan, then it is time to get your rental property. You're wanting to make sure interest rates are not what you're wanting to look at, especially when you're using a financial operating system like the Freedom Blueprint that we teach at Futurebound. You're not looking at interest rates because you have the superpower of being able to pay down your mortgage as fast as possible. You're saving interest in the hundreds of thousands by using the Freedom Blueprint. So what you're actually focusing on is housing prices. And usually the housing price of any property is going to be the smallest now than it is going to be in 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, whatever the case is in the future. So you want to make best use of the smallest housing prices possible, especially when you're looking at an investment property. You want to make sure that you can pay down that mortgage as fast as possible. So that's why it's the best time. Usually if the bank will give you that loan and you have the usable equity, you have a buffer in savings, you know that your income can support the loan. Usually it's because the bank is giving you a loan or you've kind of given yourself a cap of how much mortgage repayments that you want to pay. And you understand your cash flow. You have an amount that you can be putting onto your investment property expenses, the mortgage, the rates, and insurance if you had to and it was negative. So you've kind of looked at all those things, then you are ready to go, especially if you have that mortgage reduction system in place. So what's the biggest property investing mistake that I've seen over the years? The biggest is really buying a rental property without having a wealth building system, a financial operating system like our Freedom Blueprint here at Futurebound. What happens typically, New Zealand, we love property. And so you hear, okay, you can get a property, but you don't have an emergency fund. You don't have a buffer for your rental property. You don't have a system for paying down mortgages quickly, right? There's no strategy to reduce your debt. And something comes up, a job loss comes up, or interest rates go up, the economy just tanks. And now you're top heavy. You have so much debt that you're carrying. So by actually using the financial operating system and having that in place first and understanding when is the right time for you to be able to invest in property, then that's the way that you can keep those risks. Now here at Futurebound, we have 9 steps. They're milestones for the Freedom Blueprint, and being able to follow those milestones so you are not putting, as they say, the cart before the horse, that you are making sure that you are setting your strong financial foundations first, making sure you have no short-term debt, an emergency fund that's geared towards wealth building, making sure you have your first home and you have usable equity in your family home, then using that equity and also getting control of your equity by paying lump sum payments on your principal every single year, skyrocketing that equity. Now you're in a strong position to be investing in property. The debt by itself is not the problem. It's debt without a strategy. That becomes the problem. When you control your income, you control your mortgage. And when you control your mortgage, you can control your future. That's how you create true mortgage and financial freedom.